Welcome to this week's edition of the International Sphere, whereas our main focus is on wildlife conservation in the US, and of course it will be on series. And this is a special coverage. In this first episode, we'll cover on the exclusive interview pertaining to the US wildlife policies, federal laws, and other matters. At current poaching rates, elephants, rhinos, and iconic African wildlife may be gone within our lifetime. African elephants, up to 35,000 killed last year. Why are these animals killed? Endangered animals are slaughtered so that a single body part like tusks, pelt, or bones can be illegally sold for huge sums of money. The vast majority of poaching is caused by organized crime syndicates that use high-powered technology and weaponry to track and kill many animals at once without being detected. What does this mean to Africa? Illegal poaching and trade of endangered animals has been a huge issue in Africa for many years. Even today, despite great efforts by African wildlife authorities and environmental groups, the killing goes on. Earlier in the year 2016, over 1,200 tusks were discovered in Tanzania, a sign that the situation is still nowhere near where it should be. It is therefore understandable that conservation groups such as IFAW should be outraged at the recent proposals being put forward by governments for a limited legal trade in certain animal products. However, as is so often the case, the argument is completed once and it's difficult to judge what is best. The two most poignant cases concern the elephant and the rhino, both species that were severely threatened during the poaching era of the 1980s. Illegal killing of elephants by ivory poachers remains alarmingly high, threatening the population of the massive animals, according to a report released on the United Nations World Wildlife Day in 2016. More elephants are still killed each year than are born because of poaching in Central and West Africa, where high levels of poaching are still evident. The Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna, which puts together yearly trends on elephants. The UN said the latest figures from cities show that the steady increase in illegal killing of elephants since 2006, peaking in 2011, has been halted and stabilized, but the overall poaching levels of African elephants remains alarmingly high. More than 24,000 elephants died from poaching in 2015, according to Born Free, an international wildlife charity. The total population of African elephants, which typically weigh up to 8 tons, have tusks and are considered the largest land mammal on Earth, according to the World Wildlife Fund, WWF. Most countries, including the United States, protect their native animals and plants under national laws and through the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora cities. Signed by more than 160 nations, this treaty supports sustainable trade in wildlife and plants while protecting endangered species. In addition to international agreements, U.S. laws provide even stronger protections for such animals as marine mammals, elephants, and wild birds. In the month of September 2016, a team of a producer and a cameraman from Tanzania Broadcasting Corporation (TBC) traveled to the U.S. through various states to witness and learn how the system works on that aspect, meaning the wildlife conservation in the U.S., and hence used this opportunity as a platform to indicate how the U.S. has succeeded in this area and, of course, learn from it. In an exclusive interview with Mr. Gregory Jackson, the Acting Deputy Assistant Director, Office of Law Enforcement, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, much was discussed. But first, on how does the U.S. policy state on wildlife conservation?
Well, obviously, the role of the Office of Law Enforcement within the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is to obviously do all we can to protect the world's wildlife and plant resources from illegal commercialization or illegal activity, to continue to see them flourish and see them continue in sustainable populations.
With regard to the law enforcement on wildlife, how is the situation like?
It's significant, and we are concerned about it. There are a number of things that play into that aspect. Obviously, in today's media, the rhino and the elephant and tigers get a lot of attention and a lot of media, but we're concerned about not only those resources and other foreign or international resources, but also our own domestic resources here. Many of them have a face on world markets, and we are concerned about their ability to continue to flourish with that so-called market identity. So we are concerned about various species here in the United States as well as many abroad species.
Talking on the issue of poaching, how big is the problem?
You know, that's a really tough question. Some people say we try to shy away from it, but a lot of NGOs say that it's second only to the illegal narcotics trade or illegal drug trade. Obviously, if we knew all the answers about how big it was, we would do everything we could to stop it. But you know, it is flourishing. There's a lot of money to be made in the illegal wildlife trade. Obviously, we support legal wildlife trade, and that's the balance that we have to pursue as the Office of Law Enforcement. Obviously, there are lots of legal wildlife items traded legally every day, and our goal is to support those, but at the same time do everything in our power to interdict any illegal wildlife trade, especially those that are occurring in and around commercial markets.
What are the challenges encountered in prosecuting offenders?
Prosecuting wildlife criminals can be extremely challenging, and mainly, you know, just catching the individuals is kind of the first step. Most wildlife laws here in the United States and foreign laws and state laws that we use to prosecute wildlife offenders are very complex and not easily understood, and prosecutors are not commonly using them on an everyday basis. So it's our goal to go in and educate those prosecutors and hopefully judges for them to better understand the impact of the type of illegal activity involved and the impact it can have on the resources on the ground. Unfortunately, wildlife crime is not seen as serious crime in some areas by some courts, by some judges, and it can vary greatly. We work hard to educate them, but we're not always guaranteed a penalty or a punishment that will impact or create the deterrent effect that we're looking for future violators or the person themselves.
In Tanzania, we are facing a huge challenge on the issue of poaching.
Yes.
How are you reflecting on this here in the U.S.?
Well, obviously, you know, my agencies, we've been involved in types of poaching for, you know, over 100 years easily. Obviously, poaching it's defined differently in different areas, and it can have certainly different effects depending on how complex it is, how significant it is, and the impacts to various resources. We are obviously always concerned about illegal activity. What we have really tried to do is focus on especially combating commercial operations that are having a significant impact on the sustainability of wildlife. And obviously, you know, with a focus on the wildlife that needs our immediate attention, those that are in peril, those that are possibly threatened or endangered, or obviously those in foreign lands that the U.S. is a consumer of. Obviously, rhino and ivory is a problem here in the United States. We're a large consumer of that type of product, and it's very important to us that we play fair and that we lead in the right direction and that we don't impact those resources, especially with illegal commercial trade.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now when we talk about the issue of ivory crushing of ivory,
Yes.
Ivory crushing
Yes.
ivory, okay. Why do you think it's significant to do that?
You know,
Why not sell?
It's a very interesting question, and it's a brand new development and kind of an idea that's kind of been generated over the last couple of years in our leadership positions with the director and my boss, the assistant director. You know, our ivory sat in warehouses for years, really not telling the story that it can tell. And we gave it a great deal of thought about what to do with it, and obviously marketing it or reselling it, we felt sent the wrong message. And after lots of discussion, we felt that if we crushed it and sent a message and got the media involved and got our partners involved, we would tell a story that, you know, this will not be tolerated in this country, and to let our friends know that we're here to protect their resources as well, and we're not going to let illegal trafficking impact their resources. So that's the thought that was behind it. And after seeing a couple of them occur, I think it was a very positive event and did send that message. So it seems to be it was good thinking on people's parts and seemed to really have a significant impact.
I'm getting a little bit confused when I see that the ivory that is seized is not being destroyed. Why is that?
Well, you know, there's not a real easy way to destroy ivory, and what we do with our illegal wildlife is seized is we send it to what we call a repository. So all the illegal wildlife is sent to one location and it's housed there. You know, ivory is obviously a very easily identifiable thing, and it takes up a lot of room. And we had lots of it available, and we were trying to find a way to send a message using that ivory, and we thought the crush was the best approach to take to really send the message across the globe, really, that it won't be tolerated here in the United States.
Who are other counterparts or other partners that you collaborate in doing this kind of?
A lot of significant partners. Unfortunately, too many to name. I do know that we work closely with the Wildlife Conservation Society, the African Wildlife Foundation, the Humane Society, and the World Wildlife Fund, amongst many others, to get these accomplished recently.
Have other countries also tried to do this?
I have heard that other countries have followed our lead somewhat. I don't have a lot of specific information about who's followed it, but I do believe that it's been an approach that other countries have used to send a similar message that the U.S. Kind of stepped forward first on, yes.
What is that you would like to share with us, especially for myself, that I'm coming from Tanzania, and also we're very rich in the natural resources.
Absolutely.
Yes, especially the natural habitat and wildlife.
Yes.
What is your take on that?
Well, you know, speaking for the Fish and Wildlife Service Office of Law Enforcement is, you know, your resources are every bit as important to us as our own domestic resources. And illegal activity that occurs in your country and is brought to our country is a huge concern for us. And we consider you our friends and our partners, and we're here to work with you closely, and anybody else that will team with us to stop these illegal impacts that may be affecting your resources, other African resources, or any other wildlife resources really across the globe that are being impacted by this illegal activity.
Well, much has been learned through this exclusive interview on wildlife conservation in the U.S. It's us to play our part.